Ah, look who's still standing. Hello to the ones who left without slamming doors, who walked away with their spine straight and their mouth shut, who turned their back on the circus and didn't even look back for applause. Hello to you, the one they thought was weak because you didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't burn their world down on your way out. They thought your silence was surrender. They thought your grace was defeat. They thought you leaving quietly meant they won. Oh, how wrong they were, because while you were walking away with your head high and your dignity intact, something else was walking in, something they didn't see coming, something they didn't see coming, something that doesn't ask for permission, doesn't announce its arrival, doesn't send warning texts. Karma showed up and it didn't bring flowers. Let me paint you the picture they're living in right now. You know that moment when you leave a situation, a person, a place that drained you, and you do it with class, no drama, no public call-outs, no revenge plots, just a clean exit. You packed your peace. You took your self-respect and you walked. They probably laughed, didn't they? Probably felt relief. Probably celebrated behind your back. Finally, they're gone. Now we can do whatever we want. They thought your absence meant freedom. They thought your silence meant forgiveness. They thought the chapter was closed. But here's what they didn't realize. You didn't leave to let them win. You left so karma could work without your interference. You stepped aside so the universe could step in. And now they're learning what happens when someone chooses dignity over destruction. Because the aftermath isn't pretty. See, when you leave with class, you're not running away. You're stepping out of the way of your own downfall. You're refusing to become the villain in their story. You're choosing not to give them the satisfaction of seeing you break, seeing you rage, seeing you become everything they accused you of being. But they mistook that for weakness. They thought you were too soft to fight back, too scared to speak up, too broken to retaliate. Wrong. You were just wise enough to let life do the fighting for you. Because here's the secret nobody talks about enough. When you walk away clean, when you don't stoop to their level, when you refuse to play dirty, you activate something ancient, something that doesn't need your input, something that operates on its own timeline with its own methods, and that something is watching. It's been watching this whole time. They thought they got away with it, didn't they? The lies, the betrayal, the disrespect, the way they treated you like you were disposable. They thought because you didn't explode, because you didn't air their dirty laundry to the world, that meant they were safe. That meant the story ended with them on top. But the universe doesn't work like that. Karma doesn't care about who screamed the loudest. It cares about who was right. And you were right to leave. You were right to choose yourself. You were right to walk away before they turned you into someone unrecognizable. And now while you're healing, while you're rebuilding, while you're becoming the version of yourself they'll never recognize, they're starting to feel it. That slow creeping realization that something is very, very wrong in their world. Let's talk about what karma actually looks like when it arrives. It's not always loud. It's not always immediate. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's surgical. Sometimes it shows up in ways they can't even explain to other people without sounding paranoid. Maybe it's the way their new relationship suddenly feels hollow even though it looked perfect on paper. Maybe it's the way their friends started distancing themselves without explanation. Maybe it's the way opportunities they were counting on just evaporated into thin air. Maybe it's the way their sleep got worse. Their anxiety got louder. Their reflection started looking unfamiliar. Maybe it's the way your name keeps coming up in their mind at 3-9, even though they swore they were over you. Karma doesn't always destroy someone's life in one catastrophic blow. Sometimes it dismantles them piece by piece. So slowly they don't even realize they're falling apart until they're already in pieces. And the beautiful thing, the absolutely poetic thing, is that you don't even have to watch. You don't need to keep tabs on their downfall. You don't need to scroll through their social media looking for signs of their suffering. You don't need confirmation that they're paying for what they did, because you already know. Deep in your bones, in that quiet place where truth lives, you already know that walking away with grace was the most powerful move you could have made. You already know that refusing to fight dirty was the ultimate checkmate. You already know that your silence speaks louder than any speech you could have given. And while they're out there trying to convince everyone that they're fine, that they're thriving, that losing you was the best thing that ever happened to them, you're actually living that reality. You're the one who's genuinely moving forward. You're the one whose energy shifted. You're the one who's no longer carrying their weight. But let me tell you what's really happening behind the scenes in the parts of their life you'll never see. They're pretending everything is perfect, but internally they're unraveling. Every time someone brings up your name, there's a twitch. Every time they see something that reminds them of you, there's a sting. Every time they have to face the consequences of the choices they made, there's a moment where they realize they lost something irreplaceable. Because here's what arrogant people never understand until it's too late. When someone leaves with class, it's not because they don't care. It's because they care too much about themselves to stay. It's because they value their peace more than they value proving a point. And that kind of self-respect, that kind of inner strength is rare. Once they realize what they lost, once they see you from a distance thriving without them, that's when it hits. You weren't the problem, they were. And that realization, that gut punch moment where they understand they fumbled someone real, someone solid, someone who genuinely cared, that's karma's first swing. And it doesn't stop there. Karma has a way of making sure the lesson sticks. Suddenly, the person they thought was better than you starts showing their true colors. Suddenly, the life they thought would be easier without you becomes more complicated. Suddenly, the freedom, clear throat they thought they'd gain feels more like emptiness. Suddenly, they're surrounded by people, but they've never felt more alone, because nobody loves them the way you did. Nobody shows up for them the way you did. Nobody sees them the way you did. And now they're stuck with the haunting knowledge that they destroyed something beautiful because they were too blind, too selfish, too broken to appreciate it while they had it. That's not just karma. That's karmic poetry. You know what the wildest part is? You're not even thinking about them anymore. While they're dissecting every conversation you ever had, replaying every moment, wondering if they made a mistake, you've moved on. Not in the fake way people move on, where they're still secretly hoping for an apology or a reunion. No, you've genuinely released them. You've let go of the anger, the bitterness, the need for closure. You've accepted that some people are just lessons, not forevers. And that acceptance, that peace, that closure you gave yourself without needing their input, that's the ultimate power move. Because now they can't hurt you, they can't manipulate you, they can't gaslight you into thinking you were the problem. You know your truth, you know your worth, and you know your worth. And you know that leaving was the right choice. That clarity is untouchable. Meanwhile, they're spiraling. They're questioning everything. They're reaching out to mutual friends, trying to get information about you. They're checking your social media, even though they swore they wouldn't. They're wondering if you're seeing someone new, if you're happier, if you ever think about them. And every piece of information they gather confirms what they're terrified to admit. You're better off without them. You're glowing. You're lighter. You're free. And that realization is eating them alive because it means they weren't the prize. You were. It means they didn't upgrade when they moved on, they downgraded. It means the narrative they created in their head where they were the one who got away is a lie. You were the one who got away, and now they're stuck with that truth and it's suffocating them. That's karma working in real time. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The universe has a way of showing you exactly why you had to leave. Months later, maybe even years later, you'll hear stories. Stories about how they treated the next person the same way they treated you. Stories about how their patterns never changed. Stories about how they're still making the same mistakes, still running from the same demons, still sabotaging the same blessings. And instead of feeling vindicated, instead of feeling satisfied, you'll just feel grateful. Grateful that you got out when you did. Grateful that you didn't waste more time trying to fix someone who wasn't ready to be fixed. Grateful that you chose yourself even when it was hard. That gratitude, that peace, that's the real victory, not their downfall. Your rise. Let's talk about the version of you that exists now, the one that was forged in the fire of walking away. You're not the same person who entered that situation. You're sharper now, more discerning, less tolerant of disrespect, less willing to shrink yourself to make others comfortable, less interested in proving your worth to people who should have seen it from the beginning. You've learned to recognize red flags faster. You've learned to trust your instincts more. You've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is leave before you lose yourself completely. That wisdom didn't come easy. It came from pain, from heartbreak, from choosing yourself when every part of you wanted to stay and fight for something that was already dead. But you did it. You walked away with class. And now you're living in the aftermath of that choice. And it's beautiful. They don't tell you this enough, but walking away with dignity is one of the hardest things a person can do. It's easy to scream, to explode, to burn bridges and salt the earth on your way out. It's easy to let your pain turn into rage and unleash it on everyone who hurt you. But to feel all of that, to carry all of that and still choose grace, that takes strength most people will never have. That takes maturity most people will never develop. That takes self-control most people will never master. And you did it. Not because you're weak, not because you're scared, but because you're wise enough to know that some battles aren't worth fighting. Some people aren't worth your energy. Some situations aren't worth your peace. So, you left. And in doing so, you reclaimed your power. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't love them. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. You can love someone and still leave. You can care about someone and still choose yourself. You can want the best for someone and still refuse to be part of their chaos. Leaving with class doesn't erase the pain you felt. It doesn't minimize the betrayal you experienced. It doesn't invalidate the heartbreak you endured. It just means you refuse to let that pain turn you into someone you're not. It means you refuse to let their actions determine your character. It means you refuse to give them the satisfaction of seeing you become bitter, angry, or broken. You felt everything, processed everything, and still walked away with your head high. That's not weakness. That's warrior energy. And here's what they'll never understand about people like you. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you started caring about yourself more than you cared about them. You left because you realized that love shouldn't cost you your peace. You left because you understood that some people will never see your value, no matter how much you prove it. You left because you finally accepted that you can't force someone to treat you right. You left because you chose your future over your past. And that decision, that conscious choice to prioritize your well-being over their comfort, that's what set everything in motion. That's what activated karma. That's what started the chain reaction that's now playing out in their life. Whether they realize it or not, the universe rewards people who choose themselves. Not in obvious ways, not always immediately, but eventually, inevitably, it rewards you. Maybe it's in the form of new opportunities that align with who you're becoming. Maybe it's in the form of healthier relationships that show you what you should have had all along. Maybe it's in the form of inner peace that no one can disturb. Maybe it's in the form of clarity that allows you to see situations and people for what they really are. Maybe it's in the form of confidence that can't be shaken by external validation or rejection. Whatever form it takes, it comes. And when it does, you'll understand why you had to walk away. You'll understand why the pain was necessary. You'll understand why the ending had to happen the way it did, because it wasn't just an ending, it was a redirection. While you're over here becoming the best version of yourself, while you're over here healing and growing and evolving, they're stuck in the same patterns, stuck in the same mindset, stuck in the same cycle of self-destruction. And the worst part for them is that they know deep down in those quiet moments when they can't distract themselves anymore. They know they lost something real. They know they fumbled someone who genuinely cared. They know they destroyed something beautiful because they were too damaged, too selfish, too scared to appreciate it. And that knowledge, that awareness is its own special kind of torture because they can't undo it. They can't go back. They can't fix it. You've moved on. You've closed that chapter. You've built a life they're not part of. And all they can do is watch from a distance and wonder what could have been if they had just treated you right. But here's the thing about karma that makes it so perfectly poetic. It doesn't just punish them for what they did to you. It teaches them why they lost you. It shows them through experience, through consequence, through the natural unfolding of their choices, exactly what they threw away. They'll date someone new and realize that person doesn't love them the way you did. They'll get into a new situation and realize it doesn't feel as right as what they had with you. They'll try to recreate what you gave them and realize it was irreplaceable. And with each failed attempt to find what they lost, with each moment they're reminded of what you brought to their life, the lesson deepens. The regret intensifies. The realization settles in. They had something rare and they destroyed it. That's karma's masterpiece, and the most beautiful part of all of this. The part that makes your decision to walk away with class so powerful is that you don't need their regret to validate your worth. You don't need their apology to find closure. You don't need their downfall to feel victorious, because you already won. The moment you chose yourself, the moment you walked away with dignity, the moment you refused to let their actions define you, you won. Everything that happens to them after that, every consequence they face, every lesson they learn, every piece of karma they experience, that's just the universe confirming what you already knew. You deserved better. You were right to leave. and you're better off without them. That confirmation is satisfying, sure, but it's not necessary. You already had your victory. Their karma is just the encore. So here you are now standing in a completely different reality than the one you were in when you first decided to leave. You're lighter, stronger, clearer, more aligned with who you're meant to be. The weight you were carrying, the weight of trying to make something work that was never meant to work, is gone. The confusion you felt, the confusion of wondering if you were the problem, is gone. The doubt you carried, the doubt about whether you made the right choice, is gone. All that's left is peace. Peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing. Peace that comes from choosing yourself when it mattered most. Peace that comes from walking away with your integrity intact. And that peace, that unshakable inner peace, is worth more than any revenge plot, any public call-out, any dramatic exit could ever be. They'll never understand how you did it. They'll never understand how you walked away so calmly, so quietly, so gracefully, while feeling everything you felt. They'll never understand how you carried all that pain and still chose kindness. They'll never understand how you had every reason to destroy them and chose mercy instead. But you don't need them to understand. Their understanding isn't required for your peace. Their acknowledgement isn't required for your growth. Their regret isn't required for your happiness. You've moved beyond needing anything from them. You've transcended the relationship entirely. And that transcendence, that elevation, is the ultimate form of closure. Not the closure they could give you through apologies or explanations, but the closure you gave yourself by deciding you're done carrying their chaos. Now, let's talk about what happens next. Because this story doesn't end with their karma, it continues with your evolution. Every day you spend away from that toxic situation, every day you invest in yourself, every day you choose peace over drama, you're building something they'll never be able to touch. You're building a life that reflects your worth. You're building a life that reflects your worth. You're building relationships that honor your boundaries. You're building a mindset that protects your energy. You're building a future that doesn't include people who don't appreciate you. And with each day, with each choice, with each step forward, you're proving that walking away with class wasn't just the right move. It was the only move, because staying would have cost you everything. Leaving saved you. And here's what they'll never admit but will always know. Watching you thrive without them is the hardest pill they'll ever swallow. Seeing you happy, seeing you glowing, seeing you unbothered. That's the revenge they fear most. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because your happiness without them proves they were never as important as they thought they were. It proves they were replaceable. It proves their absence didn't destroy you. It freed you. And that truth, that undeniable truth, will haunt them longer than any words you could have said. Your life, your peace, your growth. That's the statement. That's the message. That's the proof that karma doesn't always need to destroy someone's world. Sometimes it just shows them exactly what they lost by letting you walk away. So to every